it's Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and I want to thank all of the expert moderators and panelists for being a part of these Insight Jam discussions today. The launch of InsightJam.com has been incredibly rewarding with all of the contributions we're receiving from the experts and solution providers and end users. It's really been quite a sight to see. If you haven't joined InsightJam.com already, please do. And if you have, please invite some of your colleagues to join as well. And again, thanks very much for being here and enjoy today's discussions.
Solutions Review presents Insight Jam, a social media community for enterprise technology. Hello and good afternoon and welcome back to Mini Jam Live. My name is Jonathan Paula. I am the Director of Multimedia and Events here at Solutions Review. Excited to introduce our second panel of the day, CDO Focus, How AI is Reshaping Cloud Data Management. We've assembled a great group of people from around America to discuss today's topic, and they're all going to be led off with our moderator, William McKnight. Thank you for joining us, one and all. William, let's start with you with our introductions. 30 seconds or so. Tell the audience a bit about yourself and what excites you for today's topic.
I'm just really excited about today's topic. I'm not sure we could have picked a more relevant topic for our audience today because this is what they're all dealing with. And I know that they're making plans for AI and they have a lot of data to manage, a lot more than they ever have. And so I'm excited about our panel today because we have assembled a group here of panelists that are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis and building that future for them. So I'm excited to hear what they have to share. I'm William McKnight, and I'm president of McKnight Consulting Group. I'm a longtime consultant and industry analyst in enterprise data, and you can find me through my company at mcknightcg.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Adrian, over to you for our next intro.
Awesome. Well, like William, I'm excited for the panel. Just doing a little bit of research on some of the people on this panel, and a couple of them are friends. So just having an opportunity to talk about AI, having an opportunity to talk about cloud data management, that's going to be, I think we're going to have a good time here in the next hour. So as the title says, my name is Adrian Estala. I'm the field CDO at Starburst. I was a Starburst or a CDO at a large Fortune 5 before I joined Starburst. And so my focus and hopefully my contribution to the conversation today will be with a CDO lens. So looking forward to getting started.
Excellent. Thank you. Excited to have you here. David.
Sure. I've been in data and analytics my entire career. The first half, I was a practitioner, and the second half, I've joined the dark side of marketing. So I'm the director of product marketing at Elation, the data intelligence company, and I'm also the founder of Tiny Tech Guides. Excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me as well. As Adrian mentioned, and a friend of mine, very similar career. Prior to Dremio, really the last 2 years of being a CDO on this side of the table, most of my career has actually been on the other side. So I've run data analytics platforms globally for large companies like Nike, Zendesk, American Eagle, Philips, Concur, and started my career at the National Security Agency. So as we get into security and privacy and so forth, it's going to be a fun one.
Yes, hi, I am Sanjay. I'm the CEO and co-founder for Revify. And prior to this, I was a part of co-founding team for ThoughtSpot, which is all about AI in the BI space. And I've spent more than 25 years in the space, in the whole industry of databases and data warehouses, building and using ones. So excited to be here and be part of this conversation.
Hi, I'm Stu Tripathi. I've been in data, AI, tech and transformation for the past 25 plus years. I've also been a leader in alliance and partnerships, working within the ecosystem with various providers and vendors. I'm delighted to be here, being in data, and of course, I'm very curious to hear about real-world examples and what opportunities and challenges people are facing implementing AI, strategy, governance, etc.
Excellent. Thank you very much, one and all, for being here. Looking forward to the discussion. I'm going to step out of the way and let William take things over as moderator. And with the first question, take it away.
Thank you, Jonathan. And again, welcome everybody. So everybody out there in our audience is probably planning right now for artificial intelligence. And as a foundation for that, they need to get their data act in order. And this means many data stores all interacting. It can be very confusing. As a matter of fact, I think it's more confusing now than ever. But what are you all, as leaders of this wave of products that have to deal with this, what are you thinking about When you think of AI's impact on your product and your market, I'll start with Sue.
You're starting with me. Okay. Thanks, William. I think one of the key things, I'll try to be as brief as possible. In this space, we're hearing a lot of buzz, I think, around what AI can do. I want to begin by saying that you can't do AI without having a very solid data foundation. And in that data foundation, you need to have a very good and defined data strategy, data governance, management of the data, your data warehouse, things that are on the cloud, your data lakes, etc. So those are the components of data foundation upon which you're going to build AI. So while we're seeing a lot of trends around where AI is being applied in the real world, whether it's cognitive AI, whether it's NLP, I would put them into two categories. One is the lower level category and the higher level category. And the lower level order category is things that are contextual, things that are conversational, things that really don't have a major impact in terms of business outcomes. In the sense, when I say major impact, when you have errors, even if you have a few errors, you would be fine without impacting the larger business or the clientele that you have. Anything that's very complex, higher level complex data sets upon which you're going to start building your AI, that is where I have a little bit of an issue and a little bit of caution, because I worry that especially in industries that are very heavily regulated, banking, healthcare, you're talking about personal health information, security, privacy. AI is not there yet. It's not fully mature. So when you're thinking about AI, you have to think it along the lines of what you do with data, align it with that. What is your strategy? Why are you doing it? Who's going to govern it? What are the ethics? And I think we are nowhere close to having a common standardized way of looking at it across industries. So I'm going to stop.
Not at all. Sanjay, you guys fill a very important part of this stack with observability and financial operations. What are you thinking about?
So I love that question, and I also enjoyed Sue's comments, on different aspects. But to me, it's not binary. The question is, how much can you get right out of the box today, right? So when we started Revify, we started it with a very singular mission, that how can we build a level for autonomous system today for data operations? Because what we saw was that everyone was trying to figure out, how to rationalize their spend on the cloud data warehouses, which pretty much meant that everybody needed to understand what's going on with the data and am I using it right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the place where we know, for example, the AI plays a huge role. And just as an example, our whole mantra for Revify was that how can we save you time? And for that, how can we get you 95% of the right out of the box within 5 minutes? And that's all about AI. And then, of course, right, it's a symbiosis. You have the AI and you have the human, the intelligence there, and working together. So for us, this is really a core piece of our thought process and DNA at the company.
Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I remember years ago, I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago, we came up with the term, or used the term, citizens analyst. And we had this whole campaign around everyone in the company is an analyst. And what we learned at that time was everyone in the company got in a lot of trouble, right? Because they didn't actually know how to interact with the data. So I want to say yes and to a lot of stuff Sue said. But I think what AI has really done, if you just think about from 8 or 9 years ago when we started that to today, we went all the way from drag and drop, right, and no and low code being a great innovation to just natural language, based querying in a couple of seconds, right? And not even have to know where the actual data is even being queried from on the back end. And then even looking at tomorrow, right, being able to introduce multi-vectored analysis with real world ML, not just 1,000 people behind the scenes doing Mechanical Turk, offshore. Not a shot on any recent news articles out there. But I think, where we're seeing this change is hey, those promises from 8 to 9 years ago are getting more real today. And it's really continuing to unlock businesses, right? And just I don't have to have 75, 80 data engineers helping me solve these problems. I can have maybe one in function, making sure that I'm not getting myself in trouble. So again, yes, and to what Sue said is we have to make sure we're mature at the core, though, as we give that flexibility at the edge, and then really making sure that as we're building these things, we're emphasizing these more flexible and open architectures to allow that rate of change to continue as we move in the future.
So I'm hearing a theme here of make it easy, make it seamless, make it out of the box. And Adrian, I know Starburst, you guys have a very attractive option for migrating data stores to. Is this something that you focus on there?
Love the answers. Let me take on your specific point, let me take a slightly different approach, because I think the reality is, so if I'm a CDO for a large business, large company, I've been doing AI for a long time. And I know we say we're not ready, it's not mature, but there are elements on the AI side that I've already been doing. And there's certainly, when we use AI as a broad term, we try to group everything under there, but certainly there's more advanced, more current AI, LLMs, generative AI that maybe are more modern. But we've been doing AI predictive algorithms in oil and gas and in financials and in pharmaceuticals for a long time. And so as a CDO, the reality is I don't have time to reset. I don't have time to rebuild. I'm not starting with a greenfield environment. I have to use what I already have. And so when somebody says, we're going to go do AI, I need to migrate, I would say, whoa, time out, right? There's no time to migrate, right? And if you migrate, you'll never stop migrating. It doesn't mean that there aren't good reasons to move data. It means that we have to find a way today to get the data in front of the data science teams that need it, get the right data at the right size, the right quality. And so before somebody says migrate, I would say, let's make sure that we think about other alternatives to connecting to that data and leveraging it where it is. And then more importantly, making sure that it's packaged. And you're going to hear me talk a lot in this session about data products, because I think data products fit a really strong role in what we're trying to do with AI in the future.
Great. We'll look forward to that. I'll come back to you on that one. David, in order to accomplish all this, don't you have to have a good data catalog in place?
Yeah, I think we've all been in this space quite a while, and I think the metadata is probably more important than it ever has been before. And the ability to find, understand, trust, and govern the data assets. A lot of the customers I work with, they have hundreds of thousands or millions and millions of data assets, and if you can't find them, any AI or analytic initiative is going to fail. We're seeing that as a trend. We're seeing this notion of AI governance is increasing in importance, and being able to understand what the policies are and apply and enforce them at the point of consumption. And last but not least, this human plus machine collaboration. AI is going to help automate things. It's going to help, with curation and things like that, but it doesn't run on its own. So the ability for, any software vendor, it's machines plus humans. Really, that's when the magic happens. It's not just AI. We can't forget about the people that are involved in making things happen.
Oh, that's a good point. Let's keep the humans in the mix as we go here. We're certainly going through a wave where that's going to be really important. David, stay right there on the hot seat, because I'm going to come right back to you on this next question. Data privacy and security. It's like we can't really do anything without considering data privacy and security anymore. So while you mentioned we have all these assets cataloged, it doesn't mean that we want everybody to have access to everything. So what are you thinking about data privacy and security at Elation?
We ingest data from wherever people are storing it, whether it's in Snowflake or Databricks or even other data sources. We have a pretty robust set of security and privacy capabilities in our software that allow stewards and people to make sure the right people have access to the data that they're entitled to. I think with generative AI, that's a whole different ball game, because these models were created by data that was essentially hoovered up from the internet, and we don't really know what's in these things with billions and billions of parameters. So I think there is a bit of a risk to organizations in understanding. We don't really know how the data that was used to build many of the large language models that are out there.
We don't. I like that, hoovered up. I get that. Adrian, you wanted to talk about this topic, so I'm going to give you the floor here on it. Data privacy and security.
Yeah, many ages ago, I was a global security architect. And so I started as a hacker, believe it or not, in the 90s. A separate conversation over a beer, but TFTP Etsy password was the extent of my hiding capabilities, and it worked for the most part. So if you got gray hairs, you remember that. So here's I think the challenge today with AI and data privacy and security. We have to worry about all the things we always worried about before, But I think now more than ever, transparency and explainability is front and center. And so when you look at an AI solution, a large machine learning solution, for example, the need to, right? Not just I want to, the need to be compliant, to be able to explain where the data came from, what I did with the data. That's the first part. And then you have to explain what the engine actually did with the data, especially if you're dealing with PII information. That's really hard. So security, privacy, governance, I think that's the next big challenge, is really delivering that explainability. From a data perspective, if I've got data pipelines all over the place and I'm moving and massaging and transforming data all over the place, it makes that job a little bit harder. So I think that's a big challenge that all of us are really trying to really get our arms around today.
I'd say. Now, Sue, at IBM, with the vast portfolio of products, you must have a pretty heavy privacy and security overlay to manage all that.
I couldn't hear you, William. Could you repeat that, please?
Well, just what about data privacy and security at IBM with all those products that you have?
We have so many thousands and thousands of products. I think the basics of what Adrian and David just said hold true. I think one of the things a key product, as you guys well know, not that I'm making a plug for anything, but Watson X, which is basically you have all your LLMs all in one place. You can just figure out what kind of model you want to build, you play in the sandbox, you've got your analytics there, you've got your data connectors there. I think your question around privacy and security, I love what Adrian said around explainability. Explainability also is contingent on, I think, what David perhaps earlier said around or maybe it was Sanjay who said, what kinds of data are you going to be looking at and why is that relevant? So before we even go in the privacy security, if you can even take any one vertical, there are a couple of components that I would like to add. One is that any updates, especially in heavily regulated industries, which I've mentioned before, you have to be very, very cautious, especially if you're looking at large volumes of data, but you have excluded certain types of members in when you were training that data. And what I mean by that, in those updates, there are new entrants, new standards, new, so to speak, clients that may be included. Is your model compliant to that? It's not just updating a policy, it's much more than that, right? So, and that's both at the national level as well as a global level if you're a global company. I think that's one of the things that I know that IBM, we take a look at very carefully. The second thing is I purposely mentioned Watson X, because Watson X, basically you can think of it as a marketplace where you've got all these different LLMs, you have your data connectors, you figure out what your queries are. So a lot of it is contingent on the client using it, right? To figure out what it also helps in what I call self-service analytics or whatever, getting to know more and more about AI. So when it comes to data privacy there, I'm not quite sure that, and can I say this, that we've sorted all those other components that I mentioned around updating, because these LLMs were trained for, whatever, at a period of time. As you're updating, people always say, well, are you in compliance? We are not talking about compliance. We're talking about maybe additional deletion. We're talking about then retraining. You can have flexible architectures, which we all have. We have open source data. We have a lot of things, but I'm not quite sure whether we're meeting the standards that we need to meet enterprise-wide as well as vertical-wise, especially in those where privacy and security matter a little bit more. And there are heavy penalties attached.
Great. Thank you, Sue. Now, Nick, at Dremio, one of the big themes is for your data lakehouse is to give direct access on everyone to all data. So how do you balance that with privacy and security requirements?
Yeah, there's a dirty thing here that I think most of us will probably laugh but nod our heads to, is most organizations don't have full spectrum visibility of all of their data. Yep. They just don't, right? Like when I was at Zendesk, we had over 250 SaaS applications powering Zendesk. How do you maintain governance of all of those different platforms, let alone each of those has the ability to combine data, enrich data, serve data, and so forth across the ecosystem. So there's one thing I love that I learned from Michelin is this phrase of like discipline at the core, flexibility at the edge. So one of the things, especially with Dremio, that I've always pushed folks is, hey, look, if you can have or effectively event or pub sub or automagically, in the case of everything you do inside Dremio, everything is tracked in terms of every event with the data asset and the usage or access to that asset. What you can start working backwards is that full spectrum visibility of usage, right? So now it's a matter of thinking about and managing the risk within your enterprise and that balance between innovation, access, overprivilegement, right? And it's definitely more art than it is science. And I think especially as we even talk about these AI tools, right? AI tools and platforms utilizing them and the patterns, they don't think about things like sec DevOps, right? They don't think about things like reusability and multi-layered attribution, right? So I think it's more of policy never is at the rate of innovation. We can't wait for policy to catch up to innovation. But what we can do is go, can I actually have spectrum visibility of everything that's happening inside? Whether I can govern them at all, and we're all catching up. Maintaining that spectrum visibility is always critical.
Great. Now, Sanjay, Nick has emphasized that it's getting more complex than ever. And even with regulations, you need people to deal with that. So my next question for everybody, I'm going to start with you, Sanjay, is there a talent and skills gap for our audience, for you guys? And what can we do about that? What are you doing about that at Reverify?
Yeah, so actually, I wanted to also add a little bit on the previous topic, William.
Okay, good.
So one is that, I think interestingly, transparency is the key, like to everything, including more so. I think the need is more now. So just as an example, like one of the customers we are working with, when the system said, this person is using a lot more data than norm, right, out of the box. The problem was what they said was that, well, that's not the problem that they're using too much data. The problem is they shouldn't have been on the system in the first place, right? And they immediately removed it. So when I look at AI, like and the use of more data there, I think the key word I'm looking for is more responsible. And a lot of this has to come from the platform itself. And just to give a context, like, it's to me it's just acceptance. Like every organization will be using now generative AI models, right? That's really it's a disruptor, and it will happen. And the question is, how can technology help there more so? And the things which I fully expect, out of this is any tech stack coming out who is using this, whether it's prompt engineering, whether it's all the way going into fine tuning, is that the data which is getting used, it is used in a way where it makes sense, which is around, does it do the right anonymization? Does it do it out of the box? And that's really the key to that. So now, hopefully, with this, like this where I'm hoping, that this data itself teaches, and that's where the AI comes into picture, telling how I should be used in the best possible way, ethical way, whichever way we look at it, in the right way to solve the problem. But now, if I take this and if you ask me about the skills and talents gap now, so now to me it's not just about people. I think it's the tech and working together, because ability for someone to build those things where it identifies that, hey, this data has certain things, and maybe before it escapes anywhere else, even to any models outside, even to other members outside the group, does it follow a certain bar? So it will be, again, like to start with, I'm assuming, again, likely a co-pilot kind of a thought process where the system does a lot out of the box, but it's augmented a lot heavily by the humans to say, is it the right thing? So yes, security, I heard the word security ops. All of this will play a very, very key role now in this new world. So yeah, sorry, I took so much time, but I wanted to share that I fully agree to transparency, but also need for this. And that is an area where it is a little bit harder, gap to fill today.
Okay, Nick, are you guys experiencing a talent skills gap?
Oh, 1,000%, right?
Okay.
Like, tell me an organization that doesn't either have a gap or doesn't have enough funding to meet the demand or need to be able to bring the innovation fast enough. Right. So it's just a space that we live in. And it changed my view a few years ago, where I used to look at data science platforms, for example, and go, great, I'm getting inside GCP. We want to use all the new open source tools that are out there, right? We want to really drive innovation. And then I end up having this shift when you start hitting this realization of, hey, there's just not that many people in the world that know how to use those tools the right way, deliver them. And oh, by the way, if they leave, who's going to pick them up? So I started shifting and going, all right, great. I'm going to look at tools like Data Robot, right? And go, how do I make 3 data scientists feel like 15, right? So it's looking at the tools and technologies and going, hey, ease of use now is frankly more important than feature sets, right? How easy or fast it is to put things in production is going to be more important than, hey, great, you put it there over a 6-month period. That's going to take 7 people to manage it, let alone metadata drift, the data drift, and all these other problems. So it's really being pragmatic about what we're delivering into the enterprise and the ability to mature that over time. And I think that's a piece where I say is, how are we adjusting to the skills gap? Right. And then the other side of using AI to go, can I automate 80% of functions, not 80% of my workforce, but 80% of my functions to allow those folks to be able to drive better impact. And that's all the way even down to, can I give, like Maersk uses Gen AI with an individual person coming in to go, hey, can I bring this new ship into port? Right. Just giving them the tools to be able to do that versus flipping through a book. I can answer that in 30 seconds and then utilize all the space we have and maximize the impact of our role. That's a person sitting in a security booth.
Yes, I hear it all the time. Time to value, total cost of ownership. Now, David, Elation makes all this much more possible. You guys fill a gap so that people know where their assets are, help them get started. But there's still a skills gap out there, even with Elation, right?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. We talk a lot about data culture and the importance of building a data culture. And it's actually a bit of a paradox because, we don't wake up and say, I'm going to go buy some data culture today, and no. It's not something people buy, but, it's extremely important. We have 4 pillars, there's data search and discovery, data governance, data leadership, and data literacy. And, some of the very best companies that are, advanced, we have a data culture maturity model that anybody can go take on the Elation website. Some of the best companies out there that have high data culture maturity put a concentrated effort on training and building communities of practices, within their organizations. It doesn't happen on its own. And that really starts with, the leadership of the organization. You have to have leadership, and you have to make sure that people in your organization are data literate and know how to use the data and things like that. Certainly generative AI and other AI technologies will help automate, some of the mundane tasks. And you can ask it how to do things. If you don't know how to do things, it can do that. But in my mind, it's just that comes down to the people, and the building that data culture within a company is extremely important.
It is, and I've never got a budget for it. Data culture or data strategy, for that matter.
Right. That's right.
Or data maturity. It's always about business deliverables, and these things I try to drag along with it, so that gets improved, so that the next project benefits from what we're doing. But anyway, there's still a skills gap out there, and Adrian, I did want to give you the final word on it.
That'd be awesome. Thanks. I'll take a different spin on it. There's a skills gap for sure on the IT side. Everybody's talked about. I would argue that there's a bigger skills gap on the business side. And I will say is closing the business skills gap is going to be more important to really ultimately our business outcomes than the IT skills gap. And I think it's because of that we're going to close the business skills gap much faster. And I'm not saying, although we want our business teams to learn to code, I'm talking about making that easier for them. I'm talking about making their access to data much simpler. I love, I think Nick was talking about the citizen, program, right? Data citizens or citizen do-it-yourselves or citizen analytics engineers, whatever word you want to put in there, but training business teams, not just to code, but just to use the data and the way that they want to use the data is going to be really, really important. I'm trying to squeeze in a word that Nick used that I can't. What did you say? Auto magic ability. I got to find a way to put that word into my speech somewhere. But if we could find a way to create some magic with these business teams, I think that's the skills gap that really matters right now. And I think we're getting there with AI and with the automation that we're creating and with things like data products and make it really easy for teams to understand data. I think that battle is going to get really, really, that gap's going to close much faster than we would think.
Yeah, let's build that easy button. So in terms of the business side skills that are still lacking out there, I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's really our responsibility. Everybody that's listening, that's a data professional, we know that it's a gap. We know that the business needs to use data more. So no matter what we do in terms of building out architecture and building out technology and making data more mature and so on, we still need to educate the business about how to use it and prompt them and seed projects and so on inside our organizations. So really, I think we need to be the leaders. We data professionals need to be the leaders in our organizations. Speaking of data professionals, my next question is about empowering them with data management strategies that are relevant today, because a lot of them are stuck 5-10 years ago in terms of how they're thinking about things. And today, there's this exponential technology, exponential possibilities. So what are some kind of broad strokes that we can give them to take away and think about as they're coming up with ideas for their organization in their data management strategies? Nick, I'll get you started on this one.
Yeah, I get a little fussy on this topic because we take it, technology first, right? And then we always talk about connecting to business and all this other jazz, right? And one thing I learned in the middle of my career when I used to have a little allergy to things like advisory boards, right? And being able to set up, different, we'll just say, even leadership sections within the business to go, hey, could we help prioritize these things? So I'm like, no, we know this much better than you. I was like, I realized it was backwards, right? So now I got to the point in my career now where if I walk in and any engineer that's ever tied to me or any data product manager otherwise, and if they can't articulate the impact of their work, we shut it down and I'll put my badge on it, right? So I think we're seeing more and more. There's a couple great HBR articles that has even come out recently on like measuring the impact of the data and analytics organizations. And I think the one thing I always advise every time I'm with any customer or prospect is every single thing you should do should have an actual shared OKR with the business user, right? And it's not just to deliver that, but it's also to think about it's innovate with, right? Every single thing you should do, if it's successful, it's going to transition into function or it's going to transition into the product organization. So you can be an innovation arm, right? And you can show them how to use these tools, but if it doesn't transition into them, it's not sustained flywheel transformation. And everything we do should be foundational for the next couple of years and the next couple of innovations. So this is where I'd say like enable safely, right? But when you're doing that safe enablement, it should really be through a shared OKR with the business user. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Well, you put that so well. And I like to say that I want everyone on the team to know how they're driving ROI with what you're doing today. Are we trying to drive more sales? We're trying to reduce expenses. We're trying to create new capabilities. Sue, in your walk at IBM, are there some things that you've come up with for your clientele?
I don't know whether I want to only speak about IBM per se. I really liked, what Nick said about ROI and measuring the impact. I think around the data management strategy, I think someone else also had said something about visibility within the entire enterprise. I can't speak on behalf of an entire global organization, but I've worked with a number of global organizations. I've come to the conclusion that when it comes to things like data management strategy, we assume that we have something enterprise-wide. We probably do. Conceptually, we do, and we all agree on it. It's the implementation of how that strategy gets enforced across the enterprise that I probably would like to take a step back and say, I'm not quite sure that we are all enforcing it in the way we need to enforce it, or that we've had some learnings where we could mutually benefit from each other enterprise-wide. Maybe broad categories, yes. So then that feeds into what Nick said about measuring the impact of ROI, right? The measurement largely usually includes finance, right? Dollars, cents. But it needs to go way beyond that. The toughest measurement is actually around the quality, right? And quality is very sometimes difficult to measure because we have different formats and different ways of understanding what quality means, especially around data quality. And does it have subcategories such as accuracy, such as validity, such as reliability, such as explainability, time to value, speed, things that we use for go-to-marketing? Do we have an enterprise-wide understanding, agnostic of the sector that you're in or agnostic of the geography that you're in, that your enterprise data management strategy actually has those subcategories by which you're also going to start measuring? So those are the things that, and I don't think it's specific to IBM per se. I don't think it's specific to any large or small company. I think anyone in this realm probably is using it. My only take on this is, do we know and are we sure that we are enforcing it in the way we should be enforcing it? Or do we all agree on the key metrics? Are we looking at the key metrics in the right way? Are we collecting it in the right way? Are we evaluating it in the right way, which is different from data analysis, data analytics? People always think data, not everybody, but sometimes we intertwine data analysis or analytics with evaluation. Very different. You're measuring something is very different. So those are and these are easy to do things, right? So I think someone taking the bull by the horns and saying, this is what we're going to do, and let's see whether we can establish a CQI process, a continuous quality improvement process that actually informs our data management strategy continuously, so that, again, we truly adopt something. So there are components of change management now in this, right? And alignment to what Adrian was saying. I love the fact that he said, I'm twisting this. I'm not twisting it, but I'm looking at it from another angle. I'm going to look at the business skills and then the alignment with the IT skills. The whole purpose of data management is not that it resides with data folks. To David's point, data culture means everybody is an owner of data. And I can guarantee you this, that most people will point a finger and say, William is the head of data, go to William. The rest of us, or one is in business, one is in IT, one is an AI guru. So these guys are not data, right? We've created some silos that need to be broken.
I love that point too, Dr. Sue, because it's like you got to meet the business where they're at. Every organization is going to have a different answer, a different response on how they roll them out based on, David, to your point, the data culture.
And a different perspective on what this problem is. Now, Adrian, you're a former CDO. How would you advise your former self now that you know a few more things from being on the vendor side?
Yeah, it's the ability to look back is always fascinating. The things I should have done. I think taking everything that everybody's already said and maybe I'm trying to bring it together a little bit. The vision. So if I'm as a data leader, the vision I'm trying to create is just tricky. One of my old bosses, global CIO at Shell, once said, he came out, big speech, and he said, we only celebrate business outcomes. And everyone in IT sat back and said, yes. And then we said, how? And the challenge was, it's difficult for IT teams, especially if you're deeper into the technical layers, to really understand what your impact is in the business. And so I think that's challenging. We talk about creating an abstraction layer, right? We think about making it simple for the business. And so let's imagine this abstraction layer. If you're on this side of the layer, you're on the business side. I don't want you to see the complexity on the back end. I want to make it really easy for you so you can't see through that pane of glass. All you see is the simplicity, the data products, easy ways for you to get to the data you need to drive insight. You're on the business side, you can't see through the abstraction layer. But it's different on this side. If you're on the IT side of that abstraction layer, I want you to see through the glass. I want you to be able to see what happens with your data, who's using your data, how they're using your data, and to be very open and honest about where it's falling apart, where quality is an issue, where security is an issue. And so in some senses, we're making it harder for the IT teams. But I think if the IT teams can see through the glass and understand what's happening with their data, that's the culture I'm trying to drive. Much better IT and business visibility end to end, but I still need to keep it simple for the business on the front end.
I think it's funny that I'm asking about data management strategies and everybody's going to business, which I think is great. We've come a long way. We've really come a long way since we're doing this. Now, Sanjay, was there?
No, I just wanted to say, there's something which is very, I think, very unique to this whole space with the current, whole model around cloud data warehouses. So one thing which I find very, very interesting is that people talk about using more data, but we seldom, actually never hear about exit strategy for data. So and that is something which ironically is like very key, how to use your data stack in the right way. So when we talk about cheaper decisions, right, at Verify we say cheaper decisions, better decisions, cheaper and faster, right? it really the intent is to encapsulate, how much is the cost of having this delivered. And at some point, when it stops serving its purpose, is there a way for us to remove it?
Mm.
Is that actually this goes back to, again, the points which also I think Adrian was talking about, is that the data teams also need to have visibility. Is the purpose no longer there for businesses to use it? And if it's not there, how do we remove it? And we have to feel empowered to remove it. So I just wanted to add this. That is the key area which ironically
That's a good point. And Sanjay may not say it, but his product does a great job at identifying the data that is used and not used, and maybe you could get rid of and save a lot of money. Absolutely. Great point. Now, David, for your product, for any of these products here represented today, I know that clients will bring up, well, how does this align with my data management strategy, my overall strategy, and where we're going? And that can kind of slow things down sometimes. So how do you keep them moving with their data management strategy, but also get the data catalog moving at the same time?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I agree with everything that was said, earlier. It really comes down to the business outcomes and, what are the OKRs. We don't do data management, analytics, or AI for the sake of doing it. We do that really to solve a business challenge or business problem, something faster, lower risk, or what have you. I think, we have a consumption tracker as well, and per the earlier point on, hey, what's being used, what's not being used, and I think we should have an exit strategy for data. That was really interesting. I think with generative AI and sort of traditional or predictive AI, whatever term you want to use, I think we're seeing a really an elevated importance on data quality. We've all heard the garbage in, garbage out, but if we are running our business on analytics in AI, we better be sure that we have the best quality data we can. And it was brought up earlier on, data products, we support that, and critical data elements. We really need to invest in understanding what is the problem you're trying to solve and work backwards and have that drive your data management strategy versus just, hey, we got a strategy, but not tying it to a business outcome.
And let me say, David, I really like what Elation is starting to do with data products. I think it's a really nice interface. So nice job there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to add one more thing here, because again, close to my heart. When you're talking to one of the leaders, right, they were saying, should I wait for the best data quality? Actually goes back to what you're saying, David. Absolutely, like strong +1. Before I start using and building my entire, beautiful analytics or AI on top. And the answer to that was, we said, if you wait for it, it's likely not going to happen for the perfection. The idea is that the sooner you start seeing it, it puts you in that cycle of knowing, where do you want to, improve things and make it right, because you can't do it all for everything at the same time. So helping, focus on what matters. It really is about handing out certain times, products to people and then iterating on that. But absolutely right, it's truly a garbage in, garbage out model at the end of the day, and people have to fully imbibe that.
Yeah. I like to say, though, when I hear that, that if you're receiving garbage in, it's not good enough to turn around and just give that garbage out. You be a refinery and improve that. So you're not just passing, you're not just a pass through, but you're refining with data quality. I know we're all thinking about data quality.
I'd love to push this one a little bit, though, because I think it depends on what questions you're asking. And so, like, one thing I normally like to blow up a little room with is I'm in a data analytics space, but I don't actually care about data. What I care about is insights, right? Okay. So if the data is a little dirty, if I have an 80% confidence score, right, I can make decisions off of that. Frankly, it's what the business continues to do every single day.
Right.
But how you make sustained long-term decisions, like your K10 can't be wrong when you're reporting your financial metrics to the street.
Yeah.
But for other ones of like, hey, I'm thinking about exploration, experimentation, right? Can I just get I used to get in fights with my business users before I really understood by going, well, what question are you trying to answer? And they're like, I don't know. I just want to get access to this, do some exploration, experimentation, and then I'll figure out what I don't know. And I learned they're right. But at certain
Yeah.
points, you need to have maturity on how those decisions continue to drive the enterprise. And that's when it needs to be no longer garbage or 80% confidence score.
William, can I bring a little bit of AI back into the conversation? I think we all went down the data. We hooked on that word strategy, and so that's our fault. You know, we're like, okay, But on the data management side, you know, I do think there are a number of opportunities or areas where I think AI is having an impact. Right. Certainly, if you think about data management operations, right, just creating greater efficiencies in things like data quality, right? There are a number of AI tools out there already. We have one embedded in our solution where you can drive and improve better data quality. Data selection, this is interesting, right? With things like RAG, where you can start to look at using something like retrieval, augmented generation. Let's go out there and actually find the right data to bring into your AI solution. I know that's still evolving. I know our team's still playing with that, but the ability to do that with large data sets, to very quickly find find the right data and bring it to the right people, that data management efficiency, I think, is starting to really make an impact for a lot of organizations.
Nice. Well, thank you for that. And I feel a theme here of let's not be a perfectionist out there. Let's drive ROI within the organization. That's what it's all about. And that's great. And that's true for AI as well. Although, Nick, I'm not sure I could ever say I don't care about data. I'll have to work on that.
We know what he meant. We know what he meant.
It gets the attention. It gets the attention.
Flow for me, but I'll work on it. Now, Adrian, you mentioned that we kind of got a little bit away from AI. Well, this is going to be square back on it, because I want to finish up with this last question before I turn it back to Jonathan. And it's about ethical considerations of what we're doing with AI in these organizations upon the data. It's already been touched on a little bit here, but I wanted to give us some moments here to square on, talk about that. I'll start with you, David, because you had actually brought it up before.
Yeah, AI ethics is quite interesting to me, and you do see differences in, say, North American market versus EMEA, and you know, companies, I think historically, at least in the U.S., haven't really taken it seriously. They're like, hey, we're pro ethics, great, but you know, actually having a framework and understanding that and implementing it, it's actually quite challenging to do for a lot of organizations. And so I think companies need to, you know, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. You know, a lot of times, you know, if you talk about fairness and things like this, like, who makes those decisions? Do you leave it up to the data scientists? Probably not. There's like 20 different mathematical definitions of fairness. This is a business question, and the business needs to have a cross-functional team that is put together to put a framework together and discuss these things. And then you need tooling and technology to help implement, you know, the governance framework. But I think it really starts with the business taking it seriously, and at least in North American, you know, markets, I don't think we're quite there. Europe is a lot further ahead than the U.S.
Yeah, they are. I just hope it meets the charter of our organizations to do something ethically with artificial intelligence. Sanjay, what are you seeing in this area?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, there are two pieces which we are seeing. Like, of course, like the need and the discussions around it, like strong +1 to that, right? But to see it in practice, I think there's more work to be done. In fact, I, as a technologist, also think in another way is that, you know, many of these things we have talked about as industry leaders in that space. But is there a way, ironically, can we use AI even to identify the areas where there are gaps? Like, because, you know, there are very different kinds of things. Like, suppose I want to understand, you know, what's the stopping distance for my car. That's a very different consideration than facial recognition, right? In terms of the problem you're trying to handle. So in my my gut feeling there is that it's a vertical, like some areas where you have to be very much more conscious than others, where we can benefit a lot from larger learning, but where the consciousness needs to be there, or perhaps, you know, you need some AI also to figure out and watch out for, you know, what really is going on, and that to me is a gap which we should perhaps think about as a community.
Sue, I'm going to give you the last word here on ethics before we turn it back to Jonathan.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I think in addition to what everybody else said here, I think, you know, one of the things is we have to be very cautious and when we are talking about AI ethics governance framework, right? So one is standardizations. Let's assume that we follow EMEA and we have something in North America. But then you also have to look at it not only from an enterprise wide, but if you're looking at, always go back to the verticals because there's certain verticals that demand a little bit more than others. And I'm not going to repeat which ones those are. And now the whole thing about AI ethics then has different layers of it, especially when you talk about customer experience. So you're talking about different gender or age groups, and you're talking about healthcare. So the complexity and the layer, it's not just we have a standard, there are layers and substandards, and then you have privacy security issues. So you have to bring this all together, both from a business sense and IT sense, and then really going back to what David said, it's a cultural change, but not just a data culture change. It is a cultural shift in the way we think about how we need to conduct business to now making ethics as part of the core business. And we are far, far, far from it, right? We are in a very nascent stage. But if we plan for it, if we strategize it, if we adopt it, and we just use it in one use case, and just look at it like pilot test it and see whether it works, we'll be far ahead. And I love the fact that use AI to identify AI ethical gaps. I love what Sanjay said. So thank you for that.
That's a good answer, Sue. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sue. And thank you, everybody. Before I turn it back to Jonathan, I want to wrap up what I think I heard here today. It was a lot. It was like a fire hose, really, of information. And I hope there was some nuggets in here. I'm sure there was some nuggets in here for everybody, if not a lot of them. I heard a lot of transitioning of the questions back to the bottom line for the business. I heard a lot about we're just starting out with AI and we don't know where it's all going to go, but we have to take it step by step. And there are definitely things that the business needs from the products that are represented here and otherwise. It's more complex than ever. The data management professional is squarely in the hot seat now of artificial intelligence. As a matter of fact, I view artificial intelligence on the maturity spectrum of data because data is that important to artificial intelligence. And that came out today as well. So I thank you all for your questions. Jonathan, I know you're going to wrap us up here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you one and all for this discussion. It has been illuminating to hear all of your expertise over the last hour. Before we go, though, I'd like to invite each of you to provide some self-promo, whether you want to plug your company solution, a podcast, a book, your LinkedIn profile, wherever you'd like to send the audience. We'll start in reverse clockwise order. So, Sue, you're up first.
Yeah, what I'm going to advocate for is start bringing people into this conversation, whether they're in data AI or not in data AI analytics, because we need people, and that's how we pull resources in and build a fabulous skill set of those who are interested but not yet in it. So that's my plug.
Excellent. Right on. Sanjay, 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, so I would say, I would invite everyone to come and check out, revify.com. We built it with a purpose to give companies back both time and money. I mean, that's really the goal for Revify, and all it takes is 5 minutes with no data access required. So, pleasure to be here. And
excellent. Thank you very much. Pleasure having you here. Nick, how about you?
Yeah, no, as Adrian mentioned earlier, I think a number of us are going to be at Data Universe next week. So if you're around, check us out. I think we're all presenting. But past that, Subsurface is coming up May 2nd and 3rd. It's a lakehouse conference. Basically, the who's who of everyone around lakehouse will have different parts in there. And it's going to be a lot of great topics. And I'll even be presenting myself there with Zhamak and Paolo on data mesh.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. David, where would you like to send the audience?
Sure. A couple things. If you haven't heard of Elation, please go check them out. 40% of the Fortune 100 companies use Elation for their data intelligence platform. And separate from that, if you're interested in generative AI business applications, recently published a tiny tech guide on that. Give it a look. It's on Amazon.
Right on. Love to see people promoting books. Adrian, how about you?
William, first, you did a great job. William's not, you can still hear us, but he did a great job moderating. So I wanted to just give him credit for that. So it's been my pleasure to represent Starburst Data here on this session. I think it was a good session. I can't wait to re-listen and get some more nuggets, as you said a second ago. But I'm looking forward to seeing anyone that wants to give us a call or reach out to us via LinkedIn over at Data Universe next week. We'll grab a beer, we'll charge the Nick, and we'll have some additional conversations on AI. So pleasure to meet you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. William, last but not least.
Well, thank you all for joining, and I hope you got some great value out of this. I know I did. You can check us out at mcknightcg.com if you're overwhelmed by this AI future, or just want to know what the next best step to take is. And you want some experts in your corner. We are vendor neutral. We are architecture and bottom line oriented, and we will help you get your data act together.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And pleasure having you all here. William, thank you again for moderating. This was a great discussion, but if you missed any of it and you need to go back and rewind it, they will be available on demand at any time on the Solutions Review YouTube channel and the Insight Jam YouTube channel and the Solutions Review LinkedIn profile. Speaking of both of those locations, we encourage you to follow Insight Jam on YouTube and join the 38,000 other people who have already subscribed to a daily source of expert panels like this one, short advice. We have podcasts every day over there. It is a great place to visit. Or you can also go to insightjam.com, which is our other location, our always on destination for all of your technology needs and research. We encourage everyone to go and follow us over there and join some of our experts for that discussion. But for this particular group of individuals and experts, thank you once again for your time and attention. We hope to see you right back here in an hour for our next panel, Closing the Gap in Cybersecurity in the Boardroom. My name is Jonathan. We will see you in an hour. Thank you again.
Thank you. Goodbye.